This call will begin shortly. Requesting all the participants to please stay connected. This conference call will begin shortly. Thank you. Gentlemen, good day and welcome to the Cyient Q4 FY20 earnings conference call. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then 0 on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Ajay Agrawal from Cyient for opening comments. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for taking the call. It's quite late evening today, but just because of the COVID scenario, we just finished our board meeting, and we will be talking about the results for the quarter ended 31st March, and we will also be talking about the full year. I'm Ajay Agrawal. Present with me on this call is our Executive Chairman, Mr. Mohan Reddy, Managing Director and CEO, Krishna Bodanapu, and also our President and COO, Karthik Natarajan. Before we begin, I would like to mention that some of the statements made in today's discussions may be forward-looking in nature and may involve risks and uncertainties. A detailed statement in this regard is available on our investor update, which has been emailed to you and is also posted on our corporate website. This call will be accompanied with an earnings call presentation. With this, may I invite Mr. Mohan Reddy to provide a brief overview of the company's performance for the quarter and the year ended March 31st, 2020.
Thank you, Ajay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you again for joining us this late on the conference call. As Ajay said, given the COVID situation and the restrictions on travel, none of our directors could travel to India. We have 3 foreign directors. One lives in Washington, D.C., the other 2 in Europe, so we had to accommodate their time constraints. We just finished the board meeting, and we thought we'll probably take the opportunity of updating all of you on the results. Let me briefly go. What I have in front of me is that we posted a quarterly revenue of 1,073.6 crores. This is a degrowth of about 2.9% quarter-on-quarter basis. In US dollar terms, it's about $149.2 million. That's a degrowth of 3.8% on a quarter-on-quarter basis, or it's about 3.7% on a constant currency terms. The services revenue were at $132.3 million, which again signifies a degrowth of 5.6% quarter-on-quarter basis, or 5.4% on a constant currency basis. The normalized EBITDA margin stood at 8.4% for the quarter, lower by 118 basis points on a quarter-to-quarter basis. The services EBITDA excluding one-off stood at 9.6% for the quarter, lower by 100 basis points on a quarter-to-quarter basis. The D&M EBIT stood at minus 0.5% for the quarter. Normalized net profit for the quarter stood at 754 million or 75.4 crores, which is a degrowth of about 30.4% on a quarter-on-quarter basis. Let me then take you through the highlights for the full year. For the full year, the total revenue stood at 4,427.4 crores, or 44,274 million rupees, signifying a degrowth of 4.1% for a full year basis. In dollar terms, the revenue was $625.2 million, it's a degrowth of about 5.3%, or on constant currency terms, it's at 4%. The services revenue stood at $550.7 million, signifying a degrowth of 5.1% in US dollars, and 3.7% in constant currency terms. The DLM revenue for the year stood at $74.6 million, a degrowth of 6.6%. Normalized group EBIT stood at rupees 4,084 million or 408.4 crores, down by 23.4%. The normalized group EBIT margin stood at 9.2% for the year, down by 2.32%. Services margins excluding one-off stood at 10.5% for the year, and the DLM margin stood at minus 0.2 for the year. Normalized profit for the year stood at 372.7 crores. It's down by about 23.9%. Continued focus on cash flow has yielded good results with cash conversion of 56.9% for the full year. The cash flow was at 410.2 crores. The total dividend payout for the financial year 20 was at 15 rupees per share. Let me come to a few business highlights for the quarter. Cyient remains focused on maximizing the remote working, work from home across all geographies to aid social distancing and ensuring a safe working environment for business critical employees who needed to be on site. In India, 92% of the employees are enabled work from home. 96% of the employees are either work from home or from customer locations in other geographies. We managed to secure work from home approvals from 94% of our clients across top 65 accounts. All these metrics are as of 30th April 2020. We signed an agreement with Hitachi Rail to deliver a series of project engineering services to support and accelerate the evolution of its signaling technology and enhance its project execution capacity in April 2020. Our Mysore facility will support manufacturing of COVID-19 diagnostic kits and X-ray system assemblies. We are providing the Telangana State Police with drone-based surveillance technology to help implement the COVID-19 related lockdown in Hyderabad. On the CSR front, Cyient contribution of 2 crores to Telangana Chief Minister Relief Fund. Cyient contributed 2 crores to Telangana Chief Minister's Relief Fund to support government's effort for fighting COVID-19 pandemic in April 2020. I'm extremely delighted to report Cyient received the 2019 Har Saharam Award from CIA Telangana State annual meeting. We continue to support the 28 government schools, provide education to about 18,500 underprivileged children. We continue to support 70 Cyient DLM centers, which are called CDCs, around Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. On the awards front, Cyient won the Supplier Innovation Award for the 7th consecutive year and Supplier's highest productivity award for the 4th consecutive year at the annual Pratt & Whitney Supplier Summit 2019. With this, I would like to hand over the call back to Ajay, who will take you through the detailed financial performance for the quarter and the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohan. Before I go to the financial update, 2 more updates I will add. First is, as you had seen, we had notified the stock exchange that in the board meeting of 6th April, the board of directors had approved the appointment of Mr. Mohan Reddy as executive chairman of the company. He has volunteered not to draw any salary from the company. Second one, also in today's concluded meeting, the board has approved the removal of the cap of 49% on the foreign holding, subject to the shareholders' approval and the regulators' approval. With this, I move over to the financial performance. If you see in terms of our revenue, we have a degrowth of 5.6% quarter on quarter. This is not in line with the anticipation that we had, and I will explain to you in detail what happened, what were we expecting, and why we could not get to that number. DLM growth is 12.7%, and this was anticipated to be higher. In terms of overall DLM, 12.4%. This is including the manufacturing facility at US. If you look at the vertical view of the quarter-on-quarter performance, you would see that, A&D and communication, I think more or less have been in line with our anticipation. Both have shown about little growth in aerospace and defense. And I would say if you take the currency into account, communication is almost flat. Where we had more challenges was one in the SIA business and in E&U business as far as quarter-on-quarter decline is concerned. This is basically, if you see, the gap between what we anticipated and the final growth is about 7%. That is about $12 million. I'm looking at what we were anticipating a minimum growth for the group of 2% versus what we have ended up around 5%. So 7% or $11.7 million. We did have the impact of the COVID while we have been able to implement work from home and other contingent measures. It did take us some time to respond to that, and also I think how could we get the approvals from the customers, that took time. Also, we had to put the IT controls and things like that. So I think that is one factor that has impacted us. In terms of our DLM, Mysore, of course, it was again on lockdown, and we had some issues on raw materials, especially coming in from the part of the Asia which got affected much earlier. Also, I think we had a lot of material ready which could not be dispatched at the month end, and that is not part of the revenue. Also in semiconductor, again the same thing, it has dependence on supplies from China and that part of the world. Because of that, we had impact of about $1.5 million. We also had an anticipation of, we were anticipating we'll be able to recover the revenue towards license for E&U. But then later we realized, it's a combined offering with services, and the way we have to take it is along with the implementation schedule. So revenue is there, but it has to be, it will be showing up in the coming quarter. And we had more challenges on E&U side in this quarter, about $3 million, and mainly coming from North America utilities, especially relating to the field work kind of challenges. So that's how we had, while we were looking at momentum on growth to continue. Most of it is COVID, some of it is still our internal issues, last two items. But I can assure you, and Krishna will also talk about in his presentation, that we have spent a lot of time in the last few quarters, including in the last few months, to make sure that whatever are the learnings we implement. This is for financial year 20. So this year we are seeing a degrowth. If you see, for many years we have been giving a growth of double digit. That's our CAGR for 5 years and 10 years. This year has been an outlier where finally we have looked at a constant currency real term growth, a degrowth of about 3.7% in services, and where we had, it is quite, other than MTS, which is positive, and E&U in constant currency, which has grown by about 3%. I think we had challenges from most of the areas. We've been talking about our challenges in A&D and communication, and I think that's what, but the good thing is in the last 2 quarters, I think we are getting better in terms of predictability and getting a complete handle on what is going on. Yeah, those are some of my comments on this. In terms of the hedge book, we have made one-time exception we had made in March, where when the rupee was depreciating by almost 5%, we had taken additional cover of 10% for financial year 21. So our hedge position is 80%. This is only one time policy change, only applicable for financial year 21. And based on this, our total forward cover position coverage is about $141 million. If you look at right-hand chart, you will see while we have a difficulty at current spot rate of 75.6 in terms of the dollar, they are losing more than a rupee. We are gaining about 4 rupees, 2 rupees, and 1 rupees each in Australian dollar, British pound, and euro. And overall, we are gaining about 2 rupees or so. So I think this is the current position of exposures. We still should be positive at the current spot rate, but we have done an analysis internally for the next year based on how the other income moves based on the spot rate and how we get the benefits of operating profit for roughly about 25 basis points for every 1 rupee change of rupee, and assuming other currencies are not headwinds. We have found that we should be neutral for the next year from the volatility of foreign exchange. In terms of other income, I would say overall this has been a good year for us on other income. While in the quarter you will find there is a marginal drop, it is mostly led by the unrealized foreign exchange losses. I want to confirm these are notional in nature. This is just a restatement of some of the loans that are in our subsidiaries which are in euro and dollar, and they have natural hedge because of inflows. So it is just a notional loss that we have got in the quarter. Otherwise, I think we continue to be very prudent on our treasury. All our investments are based on the principle of preservation of capital, so that is going well. Overall for the year, the only thing is while we were expecting the export benefits to come in Q4 due to the lockdown, they shifted in Q1. Otherwise, this number of 1250 and 206 for the quarter and year would have been higher by about 50 crores. We have got those scripts as we speak now in this particular week, and they will be showing up in our profitability statement in Q1 when we convert those scripts into cash, as we have been very prudent in terms of accounting any such benefits only on cash basis. This is in terms of the profit and loss account. I would say that we had some one-off in this particular quarter as part of our evaluation for the year, and we have been prudent to provide about 60 crore on the balance sheet in terms of the strengthening of the balance sheet. And we have also got some gains from reversal of some of the earn-outs which are not applicable. So net-net, the impact on the PAT is about 302 million INR or $4.1 million. And that also impacts on respective categories. Some of them show up in the EBIT, some of them show up on PBT, and some of them are on tax. And thus, what we have done, we have prepared a table. If you can just show the table. We have prepared a table for you to be able to clearly understand each of these one-offs. Still the earlier table, please. So let me just take a minute to explain what are these one-offs. There are 6 one-offs in this particular period, and 7 and 8 item numbers pertains to previous year's one-offs, just to make a comparison to be like to like. So we have taken the impairment of intangible assets, one for our operations in Singapore while operations continue, and but we have assumed that the future revenue is going to be lower than our original projections. So we have taken the hit of about 109 million on that. Second one is the similar thing that has happened in case of the asset under development, which is the case of the Bluebird. While we have supplied the Bluebirds to the government, we continue that business. But as prudence, whatever investment we have made, that is 222 million or $3 million, we have provided for that. Also, we had an acquisition in US called Certon, and we had an IP platform for which an intangible asset was created. For that, another provision of 73 million has been created. This is out of the prudence based on the how these things in future. I again continue. All of these operations continue, but we have taken and prepared our balance sheet for the worst case in each one of them. Fourth item is there is a trade write-off for the joint venture that we have, the small joint venture that we have, and we had some trade receivables. This is showing in serial number 5, I'm talking about serial number 5. So serial number 1 to 4, 1, 2, 3 and 5 appear from EBIT adjustment. Serial number 4 is an item which we have taken as one-off other income. That's why you would see that our other income would have been higher by 333 million. That 120 crore would have been more like 153 crore had we not called out as one-off. So we are not taking them in our normalized pack. These are some of the acquisitions where based on the share purchase agreement, the amounts payable are not due. But there have been some one-offs in these, especially Ensem, for example, where we have seen because of COVID and some other considerations, there has been little lower performance. The performance is growing. This is a good business, but just that we did not meet those milestones of earn-out, they were very aggressive. We have got the credit back of this, and there is a complete agreement with each of the sellers also. I just wanted to bring that to light. Last item is we have one-offs of tax of about 194 million, or about $2.1 million. These are pertaining to practically previous years. There are 3 items. No, I can explain here. There are 3 items which are there. Okay, we can go to that table, no problem. We have 3 items. One is we have to provide for the deferred tax for the future years in terms of the tax change to 25%. While our target continues to be 23 to 24%, we have delivered little lower than 23% for the year as a whole. We are confident that for the next 2 years we will be in this bracket of 23 to 24%. But we did have, once you go to 25% regime, 3 years from now, then we have to restate our deferred tax liability. That's the first item. Item number 2 is we had very long outstanding items of dispute and litigation with the tax department. Under this scheme, one-time scheme that has been made available to us, once we settle that, we get our cash refund for that entire assessment period. So this 44 million gives us a cash flow of 55 million in H1 because of this. Other tax provisions, these are more of the settlements that arose from assessments and other provisions. So I just want to say that this is extreme conservative. We have absolute clean position on tax, and our tax rate at normalized rate will continue to be 23 to 24%. So I would leave this table for all of you to read. We had circulated it about an hour back. So these items and then 2 items for the last year will give you a very clear idea of how we have arrived at normalized EBIT, normalized PBT, and normalized PAT. Yeah. In terms of the total performance, you would see that, there are a few things I would like to highlight. Yes, I think we were definitely looking at something like 100 basis points improvement in this quarter, but there has been a decline on the other side. I can only assure you that, from the efficiency measures and whatever program we had launched for the quarter as well as for the year, we are absolutely on track. And whatever gap is there, it is because of the volume. You saw that $11 million plus of revenue that we lost, and the corresponding loss of that in terms of the gross profit is what is reflected in our lower margin. For the services, our margin is 10.5% as again 9.2 for the group. And just to understand for the whole year, actually if you take off the impact of the volume, practically this number will be about 13% for the services, and this will be 12% for the group. Because if you take the absorption impact on the depreciation, the absorption impact on our SG&A, and some of the utilization challenges that we got because of the unanticipated revenue being lower, especially in quarter 4, I think we lost about 270 bps. Otherwise, our margin would have been tracked with what we were internally expecting to be about 12%, which is about 200 plus points higher. The kind of comfort I am providing is in terms of our efficiency work and in terms of the R2020 program that we took. I think we feel we have got an annualized saving of about 3.5%. What is showing up in the P&L is about 2.2% because this program has full impact in the coming years. but we are doing a lot to improve the margin. In terms of the normalized PAT, I already explained some of the items. Overall, the normalized number is 3,727 million, and this is lower by 23.9% year-on-year. I would let you read this bridge. We have provided you complete details of what has happened in terms of the movement of the margin, both for the quarter and for the year. And I've also tried to give you the guideline in terms of what happened from our anticipated margin to the actual margin. And any one of you, if you have further clarification, we can take in Q&A or we can talk offline. In terms of cash generation, as Chairman mentioned, I think we had a good year and a good quarter. This has been the highest ever free cash flow that we have generated. Our cash and cash equivalents stand at 9,518 million. The cash flow conversion for quarter four has been at 74%. So that's another good thing. And we feel that going forward also, we are anticipating that we should be able to at least maintain 50% plus conversion in H1 also. That's what we are targeting. In the current uncertainty, what we are able to plan right now is more for the 2 quarters ahead, and Krishna will talk about it more. But from our perspective, we are trying to make sure that we take care of this COVID opportunity to right-size our cost. There's a lot of focus on cost optimization and cash, so that despite the challenges that could come from the demand side of the customer and some supply side challenges because of the uncertainty that is there around the working arrangements, we will be able to maximize the cash flow as well as optimize the profit in this particular situation. With this, I'll hand over to Krishna.
Thank you, Ajay. Good evening, everyone. And like Chairman and Ajay said, thank you for being on the call this late in the evening. But the first thing is just some lessons learned from what happened over the last year or so, and what we will do going forward. I'd say there are 3 buckets of things to make sure we get to not just better predictability, but also better execution. The first is on the strategic lines. Within Karthik's organization, we've created a team that is a lot more focused on our operational efficiency issues to make sure that we get to our revenue achievement, EBIT achievement and sustenance. There's structural changes in the delivery and sales team to get to more revenue accuracy and forecast accuracy. Also how we're doing contracts and restructuring them we're looking at. There's some process-related changes that we've done, including the fact that we have the SAP system is finally up and running. This is the first quarter that the results came completely out of the system without any intervention. And we believe that now it's a matter of time that we can, we just need to pull in the time, because even this quarter it took us a while to get the results, so it all came from the system. Lastly, we have a cost management program, which we are working on quite a bit in terms of making sure that we are planning our costs and we are tracking them. If you go to the next slide, is the M&A slide. Nothing's really changed, and it's probably not the right time to talk too much about M&A, so I will skip on that. Just to give you some color on the industries that we work in, the first is aerospace and defense. Again, I think there's no secret here that this industry will be quite impacted with what is going on. If you read the commentary of Boeing and Airbus, they're saying that their planes will be 50% less, or there'll be 50% less deliverables, at least in the immediate future. So we just have to brace for that and the impact that it has on us. We will have a significant impact. It's not going to be 50% on us, hopefully, but we will have a significant impact, and we just need to brace for that. At the same time, the silver lining there is the defense part of aerospace and defense is actually holding up quite well. And we believe that that's going to be an area of focus, and we are working with our sales team to really bring focus to that part of the business. The communications industry, we will see just a medium-term impact. We believe that this is one industry that for the year will still do quite well, because all said and done, investments in 5G, investments in broadband, etc., will only have to increase considering what's going on in the world. But having said that, in the immediate term, we do have some issues because if you look at there's a lot of field-related activities because we have to get our inputs from what exists in the field, and our outputs goes to the construction companies to actually build the network once we've designed it. Therefore, there is a field challenge, and that's why though in the immediate term we do have a little bit of a challenge, we believe from a longer term basis, this is one industry. And when I say longer, I take that back. From a mid-term basis, and especially in the second half of the year, we believe that this industry will be a strong performer. In terms of energy and utilities, energy is sort of two different things are going on. The mining sector is actually doing quite well, whereas oil and gas has some significant challenges with where the pricing is. So we think that overall it will be tepid in the energy segment. Utilities will do well. While we had a challenge in, as Ajay explained, we had a fairly significant challenge at the end of the year because of some execution issues and field issues. Again, I'd say in hindsight, a lot of the COVID stuff has been lingering around in the field towards end of February, early March in various customers or in various geographies, which we didn't necessarily think the impact would be quite significant. But the field stuff is lingering, and we need to work around that. But utilities, there's a lot of investments going on. Utilities are being upgraded. There's a lot of technology that's being put in. Therefore, we are quite confident in it. Transport, like aerospace, we believe will have a little bit of a medium-term impact also, because as you can imagine, anything that brings a lot of people together in a closed, confined space will not be very sort of palatable to people. So we believe transport will have a slight issue in the medium term, but we also think that transport is an infrastructure-related sector. Therefore, a lot of spend will go into the transport sector going forward. So we assume that there will be an uptick, and we are also seeing our customers win some reasonable deals. The portfolio business has two components. The industrial segment is going to be hit hard in the immediate term because there are supply chain challenges, there are CapEx spends that are coming down. But also at the same time, a lot of the equipment that we design goes into infrastructure type of projects, be it construction, roadworks, etc. So we believe that will recover also in the medium term, but we will have some short-term issues. Geospatial, we have challenges with field work again there, because this is really the way I look at the geospatial business is capturing the realities on the ground into a virtual database, which is essentially what we do. And we don't have the access to the realities in terms of the raw data, and that's why we have an immediate term challenge. So from a medium to long term, I think this is actually one industry which will see some good growth, given that geography and tagging and proximity are going to become that much more important. The semiconductor industry has, again, there are certain areas in the semiconductor industry that are doing quite well, and there are certain areas where we will have a challenge. For example, there's a lot more being spent on network equipment, computing equipment, which consume a lot of chips. Whereas we believe that there will be a challenge on some of the consumer type of applications. Medical and healthcare is a little bit counterintuitive, because a lot of the spend in medical and healthcare is going towards COVID-related activities, and there's an absolute stoppage in the non-COVID-related activities, which is a lot of the equipment that we provide, because elective surgeries have come down. People are waiting for things to smoothen out before a lot of those things are done. I mean, it was an interesting statistic that 1 out of 5 doctors in the U.S. apparently is in furlough, because they don't want people coming into the hospital risking infection if they don't have to. So in that sense, I think there are some good opportunities there, because there's a lot more around technology, digital, telemedicine. But we will have to see how things work out in the medium term over there. So having said that, and before I stop, I want to say we don't give guidance, as you know, and we typically at the beginning of the year give a broad framework in terms of how the year looks like. This time, I think it is not going to be prudent to do that because while we have a fairly good handle on how the first half of the year is going to look like, I think the second half of the year is still up in the air, and therefore it's not very prudent to give a yearly outlook. Having said that, and in the spirit of transparency, I'll say that the first quarter looks challenging. We will have a degrowth in the first quarter. We believe that the degrowth, we are at least planning for a degrowth between 15 and 20% quarter-on-quarter, which is quite significant. But I think in the spirit of being transparent, we wanted to also convey that because I think there's a lot of hypothesis on what the numbers will be. But in our case, we are bracing for this. We're not, I'll say, what will happen, we have to see, but I think in prudence and being cautious, we're bracing for an impact of 15 to 20%. There are, of course, a number of actions that we're taking in line to this in terms of what we can do with subcontracting, facilities, sales, marketing, travel. There's a lot of things that we are doing at this point. We also won't do any salary increases, at least in the first half of the year, we certainly won't do it. If we do something in the second half, it will be for a small set of people at the more at the early career stages. We also have initiatives to improve utilization, etc. So what we are working towards is we will see the drop in Q1. We will see growth back coming in Q2, and we have confidence in that based on the current backlog and order book. And we believe that while EBIT margins will be a fairly significant challenge in Q1, coming to Q2, they will improve quite significantly, and they will be back to Q4 levels in Q2. And we hope, we plan, and we commit that we will only improve them further from there in the second half of the year.